many English, that means British novelists, they were influenced by the Russian writers. So that influence can also be compared in comparative literature, in which way they were influenced. Okay. Just like James Joyce, Irish novelist, poet, and literary critic. Okay, borrowed from the borrowed and loaned to Italo Estevao, the Italian writer, businessman, and novelist. So James Joyce, he is a famous Irish novelist. Okay, and we have got the information that James Joyce, in his writing, he was influenced by an uh, Italian novelist. He is writer, businessman, and novelist, and his name is Italo Estevao. So this influence can also be compared. So in case of English novelists, Russian writers are influenced. So we can compare such kind of influences of literature that help others to produce English language. Clarice Lispector remind us of Jean Rice. Jean Rice. The pronunciation is Jean Rice. Most probably you have studied this in your honors courses. Jean Rice. Jean Rice is she is a British novelist who was born and grew up in the Caribbean island of Dominica. That is, Jean Rice recalls D. Juna Barnes. She is an avant-garde American writer. So in the way James Joyce was influenced by Italo Estevao, in the same way, Jean Rice was influenced by the Caribbean writer. Jean Rice recalls D. Juna Barnes, okay, American avant-garde writer. Okay, so that was the thing. That means one writer, and Jean Rice was also influenced by Annis Nin, a French-born author of novels. So a writer can take his or her source material from other folk tales. In the same way, a writer can be influenced by the writer of other languages, other countries, as we have seen in case of James Joyce and Jean Rice. So such kind of influences will also be compared in comparative literature. So Matthew Arnold's view is justified that one poet is influenced by others, as well as one novelist is influenced by the other novelist or writers or the source of the other countries. That is. So it proves that literature and the writings in isolation can never be evaluated or justified properly. So we see the scenario, that is the literature. Whenever we will be comparing Bangla literature with the Bengali perspectives, that literature's perspectives or gamut, the literature's importance will be too narrow. Okay, but here, according to Matthew Arnold's view, that is comparative literature, when a literature will be comparing with the literature of other language or other country or other time, that literature will gain its true importance. That was the point mentioned by Matthew. Thus, when reader move on to his or her readings, associations and connections are the common phenomena within a single literature or writing. In this way, a single piece of writing is a part of world literature. Okay, so we see that whenever we will be comparing Bengali literature with French literature, then this Bengali literature will be a part of world literature with the wings of comparison. Okay, that is we have said. Here we have seen another writer, that is German poet and playwright, novelist, scientist, statesman, theater director, and critic Goethe. Goethe, for this reason, termed the term of comparative literature. Termed is at wealth literata, wealth literata. Okay, just like the German language, he has said. And in which way? That means when a literature will be a part of world literature, he called this, that means Goethe called this that world literature. So, and for this reason, Goethe encourages everyone to keep informed about the foreign production. Okay, a writer, not only a writer, but also a researcher, but also a reader. Today, I had been talking with one of my colleagues. He said that, do you have any idea of the recent dramas that I want to perform, that I want to make the drama stage in Bangladesh? Okay, and for this reason, the same thing, that means Goethe said that that means the reader, the researcher, and also the writer as well, they should be informed about the foreign production. Why? In order to understand the connection. And who did that job? Comparative literature helped that job. That means we have to have the connection, and we have to research the connection, and we have to identify the connection. And in this connection, Goethe comments is highly appreciable. That Goethe, one thing he said, that world literature, he has said, that is quite synonymous with world literature. In German language, it is called world literature. And the next time he said that poetry is the common property of all mankind. Here, there will be no boundary. If you write a poetry living in Bangladesh, if you write a poetry living in US or the Britain, that poetry will not be the property of Britain or Bangladesh or USA. That poetry will be the property of all mankind. That means that poem will be elaborated, studied, researched by the people living in the whole world. So in this regard, Goethe's commentary is very much appreciable, that after writing a poetry, after writing a poem, this poem will be a common property of all mankind. With what? Why we are doing this? We are talking about this. This is all related with comparative literature. Without comparative literature canon, we can't understand such kind of linkages, such kind of correlations among literatures and cultures and another field of literary studies and literary writings. In such a juncture, we assume that comparative literature is an inevitable stage in reading, which can be made easier the international marketing of books and by the availabilities of translations. Okay, so with the help of comparative literature, we can market. That means after writing a text in Bengali literature, we can give that literature to the other researcher living in France, Spanish, Russia, and also America and British. So through comparative literature, we can have the marketing of books and by the availabilities of translation. Here, one other thing is that Bengali language cannot be studied by the people living in the other countries. In this regard, you have to have the translations. So that is the scenario of comparative literature. Okay. So these are the initial stages of comparative literature. But Matthew Arnold put his comment in 1857. Okay. That is in 19th century. But at the end of the 20th century, critics put some questions for comparative literature. What is the object of study in comparative literature? Though we have got some idea, that is, what are the objects of comparative literature? That means literature of two different languages, literature of two different times of same language, the structure of two different literature, the cultural linkage and connection with different literature. But the critics were not happy. They started asking the question, what are the object of study in comparative literature? You have to tell. And how can comparison be a subject of anything? Okay, so he said, comparison, it would be a subject, cannot be. They are not ready to accept. That means critics are not ready to accept that simply comparison cannot be an object of anything. Okay, so they say, if individual writers have a canon, what might become comparative canon be? Okay, so here, in case of comparative literature, every literature is important. And for this reason, it has been called a canon, the critics said. But they said that if it is a literature of a canon, what might be the comparative canon? So which will be the important field or which will be the important literature for comparison? So they also ask such kind of questions. And how does comparative select what to compare? Okay, so what is the methodology?